Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of College Hockey Talk. On today's podcast, I'm joined by Brock women's hockey player Rebekah Feld. Welcome to the podcast, Rebekah, and how's everything going?
Thanks. Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been a good day. Summer's been good so far, so can't complain. How about you?
Yeah, things have been going well with myself as well. You know, the weather isn't the best today. It's been some thunderstorms throughout the morning, but overall, pretty good day for myself.
Nice.
Now, how's your off season going, and have you done anything interesting, whether it's hockey related or non-hockey related?
It's been good so far. I am fortunate enough to be on the ice 2 to 3 times per week now. In the beginning, it was really hard to find ice, but now I'm getting in, putting in the work. So I'm really excited to be getting ready to go back to school soon. And I guess in terms of interesting, I guess the first week of August, my family and I went out to just up north and we rented a cottage for the week. So it was really nice to just unplug, not have service, not have phones, computers out because I feel like I've been online for I guess the past year and a half now. So that was really fun. But other than that, just working this summer.
Well, that's good to hear. And how was the cottage? Like, what did you do when you were down there since you didn't have any internet?
Yeah, it was just a lot of boating. I'm a big bookworm and I haven't been able to read much in the past little bit. So I got through almost 3 books, which was really fun for me. So it was totally great. Felt like I needed the relaxation part too.
Oh, yeah, especially after the year that everyone's had. I feel like people need some sort of time to just relax and unwind for a bit.
Totally, totally.
Now, what books did you read? I'm curious. Since you went through three of them, anything interesting?
Yeah. So one of them was a self-help. Honestly, I'm terrible with remembering names of anything. One of them was about a doctor that had it was brain dead for a couple of days and then came back and he just talked about his experience while he was there. And I'm in the medical field, so I find that kind of topic really interesting. And then one of them was just this kind of self-help book, Get Back Focused, was I read that at the end going back into work. And the last one was I had started it just before. It's called Complications by, I'm not sure the doctor's name, it's a long name, but it's just about the good and the bad of the healthcare system. So all were really interesting. I love informational topics. So they were all really good reads, though. I would recommend.
Yeah, especially since it relates to your major as well, which is obviously very interesting for yourself. So, yeah, those seem like
Thank you.
interesting books. I definitely got a chance. I got to get the chance to read them at some point. I will definitely look out for them.
For sure.
Now, how's your training going, and what are you working on regarding your game for next season?
It's been good so far. Right now, my main focus has been my shot. I feel like I have the speed going for me, but my shot, I've heard it from my coaches, and I always check in with them on things I should be working on. And shot has been the most consistent. So I purchased a new net not too long ago, and now I'm just working with the fake ice pad, just taking a couple shots a day and hoping it all adds up. But yeah, that's my main focus right now, I would say.
Yeah, you kind of just answered my next question. Was one area of your game you're hoping to improve on the most? Is it always you're trying to always improve on your shot, or is that like something specific for this off season?
That was something specific, I guess, for this off season, but kind of tying into the shot is attacking the net. I find through both skating and shooting, sometimes I'm a little shy and I'll just go for the passing option, especially in the past couple of seasons. So that's really something I'm working on to try and transition into that offensive defenseman position rather than sitting back and just making those passes.
Now, last off season, obviously everyone had to face many challenges with ice time being very limited and gyms being closed as well. Have you faced similar challenges this off season, and how have you tried to overcome them?
Yeah, so I guess that's where working on my shot came in as well because it's so accessible to have that. I have a net at school, so I just got one for here as well. But that was something I was working on while I was back at school because it was really hard with the opens and closes. We didn't get many practices as a team, so I kind of focused on what I can control. And in terms of finding ice as well, in the beginning of the summer, it was almost impossible. I ended up messaging a girl I played spring hockey with, and I hadn't talked to her in years, but just out of fluke because I knew she played for Toronto. I was hoping that they would find something closer for me, and I ended up finding ice through that, but definitely hasn't been easy. And I also purchased gym equipment. That was a huge investment for me, but it's really paid off in the long run to be able to work with those weighted equipment. It's gone a really long way.
Yeah, especially because at home workouts, a lot of players have been telling me it's mostly body weight stuff and band workouts. Well, compared to the
Mhm.
gym, you're using most of the equipment. So does that like I guess change your game at all? Doing more at home workouts versus more workouts in the gym.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you still don't have that component of working out with the girls, and that atmosphere is unmatchable, but definitely at least I brought it to school, my equipment, and I would live with a few of my teammates. So that was it almost, it was really good. It was nice to have that feeling back again, even if it wasn't exactly the same. It was definitely better than the at-home body weight exercises because as much as it's great, it's just not the same in my opinion.
Now you were telling me how you're going on the ice 2 times a week. Have you tried to get rid of the quote unquote rust that you might have had not being on the ice as often as you're used to?
Yeah, honestly, just trying to start out with the easy passes, trying to just ease my way back into it, not do those fancy plays. I'm not a fancy player anyways, but just trying to make the simple plays and get the legs moving because if your legs aren't and hands aren't moving, then your brain can't, I guess, work. So just trying to get your body back in sync with itself and then trying to add on to that. But I think just starting off with the simple plays and going from there is the best way to do it.
Now, I want to transition and talk about the beginning of your hockey career and work all the way up
Mhm.
to where you are now with Brock. So, you're from Richmond Hill, Ontario. Talk about growing up there and how did you start playing hockey?
Yeah, so I actually have a pretty funny story in regards to that. So my parents first put me into figure skating just to learn how to skate that kind of deal at the local rink, and then every day after we skated, the boys would come on and play hockey that were my age, and I recognized some of them from school, and I eventually just turned to my dad and I was like, "We watched this on TV. Can I not play with them?" So it was nice that the want to play the game came from myself. But yeah, after I started, my dad took me to play it against sports, got me a set of equipment and signed me up for hockey, and I never looked back since then.
Who was your favorite player growing up? Was it someone in the NHL or was it a female player from the national team?
I'd have to say Sidney Crosby. It's a very cliche answer, but after seeing the golden goal at the Olympics, I don't think anyone could not like the guy. Sort of transitioned into Hayley Wickenheiser as I've grown up, just because I've seen how much she's done for the community and women's hockey in general. So she's a huge inspiration of mine now. But I'll always have that love for Sidney Crosby because he's been such an amazing player to watch him my whole life.
And I totally remember the golden goal. Being an American, it's a little bit of a different memory than you might have. I just remember
Right.
Ryan Miller had such a great Olympics that year, and I was so excited. I was 8 years
Totally.
old, hoping for Team USA to win, and he really broke my little kid heart. So I definitely learned a lot from that Olympics, but it was still cool to see him get that goal, especially since he's a Canadian icon.
Totally. Sorry, I didn't realize you were American, so my apologies for bringing that up.
No, it's all good. It's all good. We won the World Juniors last year, so we got some sort of revenge on that aspect of things.
Fair point, fair point.
Now, how cool was it for yourself to see Hayley Wickenheiser get inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame? Because that was like a huge step, in my opinion, towards the growth of women's hockey.
Oh, I totally agree. It's just incredible what she's done in terms of publicity and now working for the Toronto Maple Leafs on top of everything else she does. I mean, she's now a doctor as well, and that's a huge inspiration on my part just because that's what I'm striving towards. So she's just she seems like an amazing person and really down to earth, but also really strong as well. So huge inspiration of mine for my whole life, definitely.
Have you ever met her in person or no?
I have not, so that's definitely on my list of things to do.
Mhm. Well, hopefully you get that chance. I think that'll be an awesome experience for yourself. Now, before you played for Brock, you played in the PWHL for the Aurora Panthers. How'd you get the opportunity to go to that league and play for the Panthers?
Yeah, so I guess just growing up playing for the Panthers my whole life, it was a pretty seamless transition, which was awesome. I had known the girls growing up, so it was a no-brainer for me to try and get on that team. And things just fell into place, and I ended up with the girls. And just such an amazing experience. I can't speak more highly of my teammates, of my coaches. I had Mike, Ryer, and Christine, and they were both amazing people on and off the ice. So can't speak more highly of them, I guess. But it was just such an awesome experience. And all the friends I made, I still talk to some of them to this day. So it was an awesome experience.
Yeah, just talk a little bit more about your experience in the PWHL and what's the best memory you have in that league.
Oh, it was, the transition to first go in. I remember my first game and I was like almost shaking because it's such a big jump to go from being, the older girl in Bantam and then going into midget. I played midget for 1 year before playing PWHL. And even then, the physicality was a huge difference for me. You go from being a bigger, I'm only 5'6", 5'7". So, I mean, going from being a bigger to average girl in midget to being one of the tiniest girls in the PWHL. It was a huge transition for me. And that was the biggest thing I had to adjust in my game, was definitely the physicality. So that's, anytime someone's asking me the biggest difference, I would usually say that. And in terms of memories, I think just traveling around with the girls, it was just such I can't put my finger on one moment, but it was just hanging in the hotel before or after a game and talking with my coaches and my teammates. They were just all amazing girls, and there was really never that cliquey vibe that you sometimes get in hockey. So really enjoyed that, working and playing for that team for 2 years.
Now, you were the assistant captain of the team in your final season. What type of leadership did you want to bring? Were you more of a vocal leader or a lead by example type of player?
Yeah, my whole life I haven't been a very vocal person. I try to speak my opinion when it's important, but I usually am more of a sit back, work hard, put your head down and put the work in. And I still keep to that attitude until this day. In whatever I do, I'm not a hugely vocal person, but definitely lead by example is my kind of trait. And I always strive to do that, whether it's on the ice in training or off the ice in off ice training. It's really something I try to exemplify in my work.
Now, thinking back to your time in the PWHL, how did that experience help prepare you for college hockey with Brock?
I think a huge part of playing for Aurora was that we weren't the strongest team in the league. We had some really good players and we had some great games, but we also had some games where things didn't go our way. And I think that was a huge part of preparing me for playing university hockey, was understanding that you can't always have things go your way. You're not always going to win, but maybe if you lose, you look at it more in the perspective of how can we build off of this? What can I do better to help my team win? So I think that was a huge thing I had going for me going into Brock University, was when we do lose, not letting that get to my head, not being disappointed, because you have the understanding that although it's not working out right now, there's something that I can take away from this and work on. So it really helped prepare me in that sense, I think.
Now, take me back to your recruitment process. What was that like for yourself? What made you want to go to Brock versus other schools you might have looked at the time?
Yeah, so it was a long and hard recruitment process. I think I was a little late to the game, to be fair. I remember starting to send emails out and thinking, oh my goodness, all their rosters are already full, and feeling like I was behind on the game. I was going to have to take a victory lap, something like that. And Brock just kind of fell into place where I was sending out emails constantly, and I finally got a reply, and it was they came to the next game and they offered me a spot that day. So it was really slow and then fast at the very end, I guess. And I really had my eyes set on Brock just because they have a lot of extracurricular programs that go along with my program. I really enjoy that aspect of it, while also they have really good academic scholarships compared to some other Canadian universities. So to have that going in with my athletic scholarship rather than just having the athletic going for me was really, really something I appreciated. So just kind of fell into place, and I toured Brock and I loved it. So it was a really great experience, and I stick to my decision to this day. Anytime anyone asks me, I say, like, I love it here and it feels like home to me, St. Catherine. So really don't regret anything in that process.
When you think back to your recruitment process, what was your mindset like throughout that whole process? Just because you were telling me how it kind of slow it was for yourself, but how it also was very fast, especially towards the end.
Yeah, I would just say to anyone, have that determination. I started to lose hope a little bit, and I was thinking that, oh, it's looking like I'll do a victory lap, or it's looking like I'm just going to go to university, and if hockey works out, and I'll try out, and hopefully that'll fall into place. But it just kind of it went really positive really fast, and I can't speak any higher of the coaches that do reply and even say, hi, sorry, our roster's full, because a lot of the time you don't hear back. So it's a very difficult process, and there's a lot of downs before there are ups. But my mindset was just, I'm going to do everything I can. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But at least I know I've put everything in for myself.
Now, what was the biggest adjustment you had to make to college hockey? Was it the speed of the game, or was it the physicality of the game, since you're going against players that were a lot older than you were when you were a freshman?
Yeah, I think on ice, the biggest adjustment was both, honestly, the physicality and the speed. My first year, I was getting tossed around, to be completely honest with you. It was really hard because the girls are a lot bigger. They've been training every day for the past 4 years for some of them, or 5 years. So it was very difficult. And that was something my trainer stressed to us, was trying to get us stronger, eating a lot so we can build that muscle and then get to that stronger position where we're not getting as thrown around as before. But yeah, the physicality and the speed was a huge adjustment, as well was the off ice component, which was something I didn't really think of. Trying to manage all of the academics, get to class, we were running everywhere. I remember seeing my schedule. Recently I looked back at my schedule from first year versus my schedule now, and I just thought, I don't know how I did that, because it was madness, honestly. So that was another really big adjustment. But overall, I don't want to scare anyone, because it's doable and everyone does get it done. It's just you go through a phase where you're like, oh my goodness, what am I doing? But you get through it.
And how did you try to, what's your, like, I guess, what's the key for balancing both academics and hockey at such a high level? Because being myself a college student, it's hard just to balance all the academics, but adding hockey on top of that, I feel like that makes it even more of a challenge to balance your life, I guess.
Totally. And this is a question I get asked a lot, just because I do things off ice as well. I have a part-time job and I do volunteering sometimes. But I think the biggest thing is that there is no easy fix. It's kind of just a learned, I think time management is a learned skill. I'm not sure that it's something that you can just snap your fingers and have. So it helped playing sports all my life, for school, for hockey, and everything like that. So practice makes perfect, but also finding what works for you I would say is very important. I mean, when anyone asks me that, that's kind of my advice: find what works for you. For me, I am bad at studying alone, but I'm good at studying in groups, just to have those people there keeping me accountable. So if you ask anyone in my first and second year, I was a library rat. I lived there before and after practice. If I wasn't in class, I was at the library. So that really works for me. And I'm hoping we can get back in the library this year, since we are on campus, because the library is really awesome for studying. I enjoy it a lot, and it helps me get my work done.
How did you study last year, since you couldn't really do it in groups because of the pandemic going around and classes being mostly online?
My roommates and I actually started a study table, or quiet time, I guess, and we would sit at the kitchen table in our house, since we all still went back to school, and we would just all sit with each other and get our work done. And if we saw either any of us going on our phones, we would keep us accountable and, call them out for it. So it was great. We would put our phones away, and it was study time, and it worked most of the time. There were definitely times where we went off track a little bit, but it was great to have them around. I think they were a huge part of getting through the pandemic, to be honest with you.
Now, talk a little bit about your first year with Brock. What was that like for yourself, and what was the biggest thing you learned during that season?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I would say that my confidence grew a lot that year. And going in, I got fortunate slash unfortunate, I guess, that there were some injuries on our team and some girls leaving. So I ended up stepping into this position I didn't think I have. I thought, honestly, I would be on the bench the whole year, and that would be my first year. But because of the circumstances, I was getting a lot of playing time, and I didn't really believe I deserved to be there in the beginning. So I think it was really showing in my play. And I actually think one of my coaches pulled me aside and said something like, don't tell yourself that you don't deserve to be here, because you've earned your spot on the team. And it honestly went a really long way. And my confidence just grew from there when I started to look at myself and think, I deserve to be here. My coaches believe that I should be on the ice, so I need to start acting like it. And, by the second half of that year, I think I came a really long way from the beginning, being able to make those pins where might be a little bit smaller than the girl, but why not try? Or making those passes that I might not have taken the risk before because I didn't think I was good enough, but trying to make those plays that I now believe in myself that I can do. And there's always going to be mistakes along the way, no matter what.
Yeah, no, confidence is a funny thing because it's so hard to gain confidence, but it's very easy to lose confidence. And I think a lot of players don't realize how important confidence is, especially when it regards to hockey during a hockey season, just because there's so much that happens. It's kind of like a roller coaster. So confidence and keeping consistent, having good, consistent confidence is really important during a normal hockey season, especially the ones that were happening last year because of the pandemic.
Totally. It's a huge part of the game.
Now, getting thrown in those game situations as a first year, how did you I guess, how did that help your hockey development? Just being in those situations at such a young age, and how do you think that's going to help you heading into your third year now with Brock?
Yeah, I guess just learning how to throw yourself in there and learn from it. You make those mistakes early on and you don't make them again, I guess. I mean, I think I remember a girl just completely dangling me in my first year, and I just stood there and was like, that was a really good play. And then you're not going to look at the ice again next time. Very much look at the body. So at the end of the day, I think you're going to have to play to learn, and you're going to have to make mistakes to learn. So I think getting thrown in so early was really beneficial because the confidence went down and then it went up. So it was super helpful to have those positions, and having teammates that cheered me on along the way was also really beneficial. So can't speak higher of Brock for allowing me to step into that position and learn through playing. So it was a really, really long way. And coming into this year, I think just because it feels almost like a fresh start, having those feelings again and not taking advantage of being able to play because it's such a great opportunity.
Now, in your first playoff experience with Brock, you lost to Guelph. What did you learn during that playoff experience, even though you lost?
Yeah, so Guelph was an amazing team. I honestly can't speak higher of them either because they ended up, I think, winning the Nationals that year anyways. I think it taught us that if they were on another level at the end of the day. I mean, we put up a good fight, but they were the stronger team. So it put it into our minds, if we want to be that team, we need to train like we are that team. So it was like a no excuses year after that, which was really good. And I think we had a much stronger year as well. I think it was the best in history for the team. So, losing to a team is hard, but anytime you go down, you have to come back up again and even stronger. So it was a really good turning point for our team, I think. And I mean, the next year we started out a bit of a rough start, but it ended up being an amazing season. So I think we all had that in the back of our minds that we didn't want to repeat what happened with Guelph. So it was definitely a learning experience for everyone.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about that season. So during your second year, your team had a very tough start to the season. However, it started to turn things around, especially in a game versus Ontario Tech in November. What was the message to the team during that time span that helped lead to the turnaround in the regular season?
Yeah, I think we were having a tough time working together. When you come into times of panic, you start to look at yourself and think, I need to do this. I need to save everyone. And I think that's kind of what started to happen. So the messaging from our coaches was started to be, take one game at a time, make those simple plays, and they'll start to add up and lead to goals because it was just a matter of we couldn't score. But I think everyone was trying to be a superstar at that point. So once we took a step back and started having those practices where we're practicing the basic skills, doing the easy things, making this like easy passes, it started to add up. And once the momentum started a little bit in practice, that translated into our games. And once we started, we never stopped, or it took a while. So it was a really great season and definitely an important learning experience as well in life and in hockey.
You played Ryerson in the playoffs that year. However, your team unfortunately lost. What was the main difference in your playoff experience between your first year and your second year?
I think that maturity aspect from the first series was a huge part of our playoff run. And, it was a really good playoff series. We really put up a good fight, and some bounces just didn't go our way, or we didn't get that capitalized goal that would have helped us. But, we had a closer and I would say a stronger team as well. We aged a little bit more. Our core in the beginning in that series against Guelph was a little bit younger quite a bit younger actually than the Guelph teams, which I think led to our disadvantage. But in the Ryerson series, we were a bit older, so I think we had higher expectations for ourselves than what happened. But I do think we put out a really good fight, and those games were extremely close. So yeah, it was definitely a closer series than the Guelph one, but it's still, I think it might have even stung worse because we had higher expectations for ourselves.
Now, what was it like last year not getting the chance to play a season, and how did you handle not playing at all? And what'd you do during that time period, which would normally be your hockey season?
Yeah, it was a really tough time, I'm not gonna lie, because it was almost a loss of identity, not having hockey. I mean, we go to practice all the time. It was really weird to be at university and not have that going for us. It was just meetings, and it's not the same when you're over Zoom. And we actually recently had a psychologist come talk to us and talk about how the loss of sport can be even more difficult when it's sudden, and that totally resonated with me in that time. But I guess what we shifted, for me at least, what worked was shifting my focus to what I can control, and that was working on my shot, working on stick handling, academics, keeping them up, having my roommates as a resource whenever I do need to talk. And then something actually interesting I ended up taking up was I took up guitar. So I now can, I don't want to say I can play the guitar, but I can play a few songs, which is fun, just because it was I needed something to channel my energy into and have that kind of release of putting work in and seeing the results come out. So that was a great part of the year. I would say it was something that got me through it. And I think one of my roommates actually also took up guitar in that time as well. So it was interesting, learning new parts of myself that I had never looked into before, I would say.
Now, what songs can you play on the guitar? I'm curious.
I'm a big Vance Joy fan, so quite a bit of Vance Joy. I really like playing his songs. I did take a bit of a break this summer just because I have been really busy with getting back into hockey, and that's kind of turned into my priority. But yeah, big Vance Joy fan. And then I used to be a very big One Direction fan, so I can pull some of that out as well.
Nice. Can you play like Night Changes on the acoustic? Because that's probably my favorite One Direction song, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can actually. I know quite a few. I actually just learned "Walking in the Wind" by One Direction. That's my most recent song. So really, really fun to have that artistic side of me because I think I've neglected it a bit my whole life. So it's been fun to learn, and that was, I wanted to have something coming out of the pandemic. Like I did one thing
Mhm.
new, so that was my one thing that I did.
And it helps work different parts of your brain as well, which is also important, which is another aspect of, I think, learning an instrument that I think most people should learn how to learn an instrument just because it helps work different parts of your brain.
Totally. And it's totally translatable into other aspects of your life, like flexibility and things like that. So being able to bend your mind to do different things, it's always good to have challenges.
Well, I'm not a guitar guy. I'm a drum guy. I know how to play the drums. I try to learn the guitar. I wasn't that successful at it just because the frets make my fingers bleed like crazy. So that's something I have to learn is just more endurance with that. I don't know how you got through it.
Yeah, the beginning was definitely a really hard start, but you get there. And honestly, drums, I used to dabble a little bit in elementary school, and that's always something I've wanted to come back to as well.
Well, it's a little different just because the notes for the drums are completely different than like a guitar or any other instrument. So I feel like that's like the coolest thing I think about playing the drums is you just get to learn how to read different notes, but it's also fun once you get the hang of it and learning how to play different types of drums and also learning how to coordinate yourself doing different fills and different rhythms as well.
Totally. It's like having four different limbs of your body and having to think of them as separate entities. It's a very hard
Mhm.
instrument to play as well. I have a lot of respect for everyone who does.
Yeah, whenever I watch a band, I think the drummer is probably the coolest person in the band just because they make it look so easy, even though it's so difficult. So that's that. I know a lot of people like looking at the guitarist when they watch a band, but I'm more of a drummer guy.
No, I'm with you on that. Totally.
Now, do you know when you're going to play your first game? Because I was checking out your schedule and it isn't up yet for this upcoming season. Do you know like what the plan is going to be like for the upcoming season? If there's going to be fans allowed in the stadium and all that type of stuff?
Yeah, I don't think they've uploaded it yet, but the OUA did come out with our schedule, which is really exciting. We don't know about fans, and we also don't know about our rink because our rink was a vaccination clinic, but they just shut it down. So it looks like that we're going to have our rink, which wasn't which was a nice surprise because we didn't think we'd have a rink. But I think our first game is, and don't quote me on this, I think it's November 7th, but I know that our first home game is November 11th. So really excited for that. And I know my parents have their schedule checked off, just depending on whether they'll be here or at the rink. We're not sure.
Now, I know here in the U.S., the NCAA is allowing athletes that missed the year last year to have an extra year of eligibility. Is it the same thing in Canada or not?
Yeah, so it is the same thing here, and that's something that I've been really considering in the past couple months because it is time to apply to grad schools, and I'm graduating at the end of this year, where I could also do a master's and play for 1 or 2 more years because in Canada we have 5 years of eligibility. So it's been something that I've been thinking about almost nonstop. Every day I'm like, okay, well, I'll try to leave this till the time when the decision needs to be made, but it's really something to think about and something I never thought I'd have to, but really exciting times to think that I could theoretically after this year have 2 more years to play as well.
Now, we were talking about in the beginning of the podcast getting rid of the quote unquote rust when training, getting back on the ice. But how are you going to get rid of it when you get back to playing like a real game? Because it's so much different being in the game day situation versus just practicing on the ice.
Yeah, my biggest thing is I'm going to try and control my training and hopefully play at that game level intensity so that while I transition back into games, I feel more natural rather than feeling like it's another step up. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not going to be exactly the same, but hopefully we can have some scrimmages and things like that to help mimic that feeling of having the pressure right on you because it's very difficult to prepare for that when, especially for the girls coming in that have never experienced it. So hopefully play at game level intensity and push each other to our limits so that once we get into the games, it's not a huge shock because I don't want to have that rust going in and making those mistakes that we've worked so hard to eliminate.
Now, you lost a lot of players from your team in the 2019-20 season, so you're getting a lot of new players on this year's team. How are you going to try to help their transition into college hockey, and what leadership style do you want to bring with Brock when you compare it to what you were doing with Aurora?
I think I have a more vocal aspect of myself than I did before, and I'm pretty sure that comes with confidence as well. At the end of the day, I'm at the point where I don't really care what people think of me. If they think I'm totally a rude person, I don't want to put off rude vibes, I guess, but I want to make sure that everyone knows what is and is not acceptable. So I really want to have a bit more of a vocal aspect of working our butts off on and off the ice, and I for sure will be a leader by example in that sense, and hopefully by demonstrating the hard work that it does take to get to this level, the girls can, especially the new ones, can respect and get, I guess we call it on the boat, get on the boat kind of thing. So I think that showing that attitude goes a really long way in that.
And one of the players that won't be on the team for this upcoming season is Hunter Kersey. What was she like as a teammate, both on and off the ice? Because you two are pretty similar, that you both are majoring in a medical field.
Hunter is awesome. I only have good things to say about her. Hilarious on and off the ice. Really determined person as well. We had a few classes together, which is funny that you mentioned that. Really smart person. And she's just great. I think she's doing her master's in nursing now. And she's also playing for the Buffalo Buttes, I believe. So, just such a talented person and a really kind person as well. So I have only great things to say about her. She's really awesome, and I hope all the best for her.
Now, when I had her on the podcast a couple of months ago, she said she had the best style on the Brock women's hockey team. Do you agree with her on that, or do you think you might have the best style on the team?
Oh, that's hard to say. I on versus off the ice. I think she has very good on ice style. To be fair, very big respects for her. But off ice, like pregame outfits and things like that, I think I'd have to give it to Paige Cahoon. She works for Aritzia, and I don't know if you have that in Canada, but she has a very good wardrobe. I definitely steal some clothes off of her sometimes. So on ice, I can give that to alumni Hunter, I guess now, but off ice goes to Paige 100%.
And what are your goals and expectations for this upcoming season? What do you want to accomplish when you look back on the season after it's over?
I want to make sure I don't like to. I've worked with sports psychologists before, and I don't want to put my focus on a certain number of points or a certain number of goals because sometimes that's out of your control. But I do want to have a certain number of shots per game, and these aren't numbers I haven't really worked out yet, and I'm in the process of doing that. But I want to make sure that I'm doing everything on and off the ice to contribute to my success. So I don't want to look back and regret anything. So I'm all in right now, and just trying to get shots through, trying to join those rushes and work on my fitness as best I can because I really want this to be the best season yet. But numbers wise, I haven't yet, so I'm sorry I don't have that to share, but I want to go in and have my best point season for sure.
So we're now in a segment I like to call the non-hockey segment, where I just ask you some non-hockey questions just to get to know you a little bit off the ice. So we talked about who has the best style on the Brock women's hockey team, but who's the funniest on the team in your opinion?
Oh, that's a good question. Honestly, I might still have to go with Paige. She's kind of crazy, and if you ask anyone, they'll agree with that. Either Paige or Morgan Dizelle, I would say. Yeah, Morgan Dizelle is also one of the craziest people I've ever met, and funny as well. And funny enough, they both come from the same team, so there's something in that Kitchener Waterloo water, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Now I've learned a lot about you off the ice, but what do you is something you wish more people knew about yourself, I guess, besides being a good hockey player?
I guess that everyone goes through struggles to get to where they are. I don't want anyone to look at me and think that it's been an easy road to get here. I'm a big advocate of therapy and talking to therapists and mental health in general. I don't think it should be as stigmatized as it is, and I think it's a bit better than it was before. But I don't think anyone needs to be sick to talk to a therapist, and I don't even think it's labeled as sick if you're having a bad mental health day, week, month, year. So I huge transitions to be living on campus from living at home. So that was a time where I went through a lot of struggles, but just knowing that there's a lot of resources out there through school and through everything to find help, and that no one is alone going through struggles. So yeah, I don't want anyone to think that it's an easy road, or that I haven't struggled on the way to get here, because I think it's something that not a lot of people talk about. So it's something I really advocate for and I'm really passionate about, is that there are a ton of resources, and we all have a duty to do our best to help support those around us. So that's a huge part of everything I do, I think.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you on that. And I think there's still some stigma that's with mental health that I think still needs to be broken. And I hope over time that stigma can be broken, especially for men's mental health, because I feel like a lot of men struggle to open up about their mental health. So that's something I try to advocate for as well. So I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, 100%. And, it's fair to say that we've come a really long way, because I do think we have, but especially I agree in men's mental health. The NHL is doing a really good job in trying to advocate for that. And I think a lot of players are. So really commend them for that and say keep going, because it really has a huge impact, I think, on kids growing up and thinking that they're not alone in the battle. So it's great. I think we've come a really long way, and only up to go, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah, totally. I totally agree with you on that.
Mhm.
Now, what is your biggest pet peeve?
In terms of hockey, I guess we're on off of hockey, but on hockey, I would say excessive chirping. I don't want to hear you in my ear the whole time. That drives me crazy. If I've done something wrong, I guess I deserve a little bit. But if you're in my ear the whole game, you're just taking away from the game. But off of ice, definitely chewing really loudly. That is something that I can't stand. I yell at my dad sometimes for that. I'm guilty of doing that. But yeah, definitely chewing.
Mine will probably be bad driving. So when you're trying to get somewhere and someone is not driving the best, it can definitely frustrate me. But with the chirping thing, that really doesn't bother me that much. I kind of just zone it out when I play hockey. But I think, I don't know, it really doesn't. If you have a good chirp, I think it's a funny thing, to be honest with you. It really doesn't bother me that much. Maybe it's bothers some people, but not really. It doesn't really annoy me as much as other players.
Yeah, that's fair. I think we get to a point where you just tune them out. Definitely. If it's a funny one, I'll for sure laugh along with it. But yeah, if someone's in my ear the whole game, I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, just play hockey.
Yeah, and then they just take themselves out of the game because they're too busy focused on chirping rather than trying to help their team win.
Totally. I agree 100%.
Who's the best chirper on the Brock women's team?
Hmm, that's a good question as well. I think Morgan Dizal. I'm going off like the same players, but she has some outrageous things to say. Definitely.
Now, if you could have lunch with anyone in the world, who would it be and why?
I think this goes off of our conversation before, but Hayley Wickenheiser is a huge inspiration for me. And actually, someone else, Jacinda I'm going to say this wrong, Ardern, I think. She's the Prime Minister of New Zealand, and I think she's just such an inspiration as a strong woman, and, having people behind her. So I'd love to have a conversation with her about the things she's done and been through, because I'm sure she's done and seen a lot of things over the years.
Yeah, I'd like to have lunch with many different folks, but if I had to pick one, probably Brad Marchand, just because I think he's kind of like we were talking about earlier, chirpy. I think he has some good chirps, so I'd love to hear some of them. And I just think he's a great hockey player, and I think people don't realize how good of a hockey player he is just because they focus on some of the other aspects of his game too much.
Totally, totally. He would be entertaining, I think, too.
Now, last non-hockey question is, um, if what is the most interesting thing you have seen or read this week? I know you were talking about some of the books you read on vacation, but is there something else you might have seen or read this week that piques your interest to talk about?
It hasn't been an interesting week, I'm not gonna lie. I'm trying to think. That's a great question. I honestly don't know if there's anything really interesting I've heard or seen. The news has been a little glum recently, I think.
Hmm.
But actually, I saw a really cool story about. I follow a lot of good news Instagrams and Twitter, because I think the world needs more good news. I saw news about there was a man with Down syndrome who had lost a lot of his belongings in a fire, which included his DVD collection, and he actually got sent from around the world. Everyone was sending him their DVDs, and he had a massive collection. And just to see, it was a video of him, but to see the smile on his face after that, it was just priceless.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think, I'm not sure if that was on TikTok or Instagram, but I might have to send that to you because it was really cute.
Yeah, no, definitely makes your day, to say the least, having that
Hmm.
on your feed, especially with all the negativity that sometimes happens on social media as well.
For sure. I try not to follow the news too much, because I think that they try to catch your attention with the negative news. And I think the best way to avoid that is to make sure we're focusing on the positive news. Not that it doesn't deserve the spotlight, because a lot of it does, but sometimes it becomes too much. And for our own mental health, we just need to see some positivity throughout the day.
I guess for myself, I hate to bring down the mood, but I was reading a story about the wildfires that are going on in California here in the US, and just like how it's affecting the water, because the Hoover Dam, the Colorado River, is where most people in Vegas and Arizona get their water supply, and it's kind of running out quickly. And the government might
Wow.
need to step in and like figure out like how to ration water, just because it's so limited. And it's just interesting to see like how water, we don't really think too much about it, but it's such a valuable resource to all of our lives, and how it's kind of being quickly run out just because of all the global warming that's happening, and with all the how much we use it on a daily basis. So I thought that was pretty interesting, but something to consider as well.
Totally. We're struggling with that here in Ontario and in BC as well. So it's climate change is really coming to the forefront, which I do believe is a good thing to at least be getting the attention for once. And hopefully our leaders can do things to help our countries recover and do better in the future.
Now back to some hockey questions. Now my first question to you is, what do you think should be done to grow women's hockey?
I think exposure on TV and social media would be a huge start. We're getting there, but if people don't know that it's on, then they can't support it, I think, which doesn't help. So my belief is that once you have the exposure, then you can grab the fans, and then the fans can support it so that it earns the exposure. So I think that's the first step, and we've been coming a huge way so far, but I believe there should be more done, because when you're looking on if I am looking on the NHL versus the NWHL online where I have to find a stream somewhere and it's not accessible link versus the NHL, you turn on your TV and there it is. It's a very different concept. So for the young girls growing up, just to have one channel even dedicated to that, that's accessible for everyone to watch and not have to pay extra for would be incredible. And I think that would be a huge step to gaining the fans to have them in person and to build a sustainable league in the future.
Yeah, no, exposure is everything. I think most people, their first women's hockey game they've ever seen was the Olympics, just because it's on TV. So that's a big thing. And the Women's World Championships is going on right now. And I know in Canada it's on TSN. How are they doing promoting that tournament? And do you think, because it's in a good spot right now, I feel like just because there isn't that many sports that are going on right now at the moment. So it's kind of like the one thing that's going on. So how is TSN doing promoting that tournament?
Well, I watched the game last night, so really good stuff. I haven't seen many ads about it, but maybe that's just because I already knew, I guess. But yeah, I watched that with my dad last night, so can't say higher things about that. I'm excited, and hopefully Canada can take the win. I know you're not cheering for Canada, but fingers crossed.
Well, I do know some players on that team, so if they do win, I'll still be happy for those players. But I got to root for Team USA, just because that's how it is. But it should be a fun match. I'm excited to see when USA plays Canada. I would assume probably in the championship game. But I don't want to
Yeah,
make any predictions yet because I'm usually not good at that because there's some really good countries that are playing in this tournament as well.
for sure. Women's hockey has really come a long way, and not just in Canada, worldwide. So amazing to see the progress that we have. And yeah, hopefully we do see you guys in the final.
It should be fun to say the least. Now, final question for you is: what advice would you give a younger player who's trying to pursue a career in a Division One college hockey or a Canadian college as well?
I think the biggest three words is don't give up. There are many times when you can give up and think this isn't for me, but I mean, there are still girls that committed in the summer before we started. So there's never a wrong time. And if you want something, work as hard as you can for it. That be on, off the ice, in academics. And because I think that academics were something that I really had going for me coming in. I joke sometimes that I was the team's mark booster to begin with, and I've slowly earned my position. But yeah, if you have your academics and your attitude, it's two really big things that you can control that aren't hockey related. So I think, and my coach says to this day that my attitude was something I really had going for me, where it was, I'm going to do absolutely everything I can to be the best player I can be. So definitely keep working hard, and those references will come if you work and have those other things going for you as well.
Well, thank you so much, Rebekah, for coming on the podcast. Do you have any shout outs you'd like to give to any of your teammates, family members, or friends before the interview is over?
Oh, there's way too many people. I would forget anyone. So just thanks to my family for all the sacrifices they've made along the way. And then, yeah, coaches, profs, teachers along the way. Wouldn't be here without them. So huge thank you to all of them. And thanks to you for having me. It was an awesome time. And I really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much for taking your time. You have a very busy schedule, so I really appreciate you taking time out of your day and talking with me. It was fun having this conversation just to get to learn more about your hockey career. So I can't thank you enough from my end.
Yeah, thanks. Same to you. It was really nice talking to you.
Now, one question I want to ask